A system screen appears before a young man named Su-Sing, revealing his class as an immortal cultivator. Angrily, he yells that no one knows what he's been through for the past 3 years in that place. He then introduces himself as Su-Sing, revealing that he transmigrated to this world 3 years ago. This place is different as reality has merged with a game, creating monsters and dungeons. When people turn 18, they can choose a class and level up by taking down monsters. It was 3 years ago that our hero awakened the only hidden class, Immortal Cultivator. News of his ability was a huge hit, getting him into one of the country's top universities. However, soon after, the young man discovered a fatal problem with his special skill. Shocked, he realized that for some reason, he simply couldn't level up. 3 years went by, and his classmates are already bronze, silver, and gold, while he remains at level 1. Even so, the protagonist didn't give up, training his body to level 6 of body refinement. But his actual fighting power is less than that of a bronze rank, level 30 strength professional. After enduring all this, he has finally received his very own helper system. Without wasting any time, the young man decides to start the simulation to see what the future holds. His simulation reveals him to be overjoyed with his new power and surrounded by several pretty girls. In his new routine, one of the girls he helps level up doesn't have the money to pay for the service. So, the young woman offers to pay in other ways, and the two end up getting quite close. After a night they spent together, the cultivator tries to practice his skills once more. He finds a cultivation technique online, but discovers a month later that it was all a scam. This happiness doesn't last. Half a year later, the girl becomes silver rank and leaves him without a second thought. He had thought it was a romance, but in the end, the girl only wanted his money and cast him aside. Heartbroken, he trains for half a year, and his body cultivation rises to level 7. Even without graduating, his fame grows, and in 3 years, he had already accumulated millions as a helper. The young man even thinks it's not so bad, since there are always new girls to help level up. 5 years later, the school expels him, but he opens an equipment shop and gets rich again. His parents, however, call with the terrible news that his sister, Su-Nian, has passed on. To make matters worse, 3 years later, his best friend Yuan also passes away mysteriously. Sensing that something is wrong, he focuses on cultivation and reaches the 9th level of body refinement. Suddenly, the market shifts and no one wants his equipment anymore, so his shop goes bankrupt. With nothing left to do, the protagonist decides to return to his parents' house and retire. One day, while relaxing in his backyard, a colossal beast appears covering the entire sky. When the giant creature opens its eyes, terror spreads throughout all of humanity. Powerful warriors emerge from all sides to try and combat the celestial threat. A desperate battle begins, with countless people attempting to defeat the giant monster. Massive attacks are launched against the creature in the hope of inflicting some damage. Amidst the destruction, our hero gets caught in the crossfire and is sent flying. Back in reality, Su-Sing wonders what happened after all that in the simulation. The system screen informs him that the beast swallowed the nation and he passed away at 36 years old. Then, the system announced that the first simulation is free and he can choose one reward. Still panting in a cold sweat, he asks with relief if the simulation is finally over. The system then prompts him to choose a reward, and he realizes the world will end in 15 years. Determined, he believes that with the system, he can break his fate and chooses the spiritual route. At that moment, the protagonist's eyes shine brightly with the new energy flowing through him. Su-Sing feels the energy and wonders if this is what it's like to finally have a spiritual root. He never imagined that being different from normal people would feel so good for his cultivation. Just then, he discovers he can recharge the simulator with equipment and absorbs a few items. Suddenly, his bedroom door is kicked open, startling the young cultivator. His classmate Fatty Yu rushes in and tells him that 6 first-year girls are waiting for him outside. Su-Sing explains they're only there for him to help them get through game instance. Once outside, he lays down his rules, charging 2,000 per person and keeping all the items. Our hero then leads the group of girls into the dungeon, and one of them is the same girl from the simulation. A young woman named Wang Qingshuan is worried, as she doesn't have the 2,000 yuan to pay for his service. Inside the instance, a giant boar-like monster appears to attack their group. Without hesitation, the protagonist quickly advances toward the creature to begin the fight. He lands a series of powerful punches on the monster, which can't even react to the blows. The boar is defeated easily, and the girls are impressed by their upperclassmen's strength. One of them, very excited, praises the young man, saying his display of power was incredible. After the fight, all the girls pay the agreed-upon fee, thanking him for his help in the dungeon. At this moment, the young Wang Qingshuan approaches him, her face flushed with embarrassment. She says she's short on cash, and it seems the simulation is indeed about to repeat itself. The young woman then asks if she can pay for his help in a less conventional way. She emphasizes that she's broke at the moment, insinuating if he would accept something else. Our hero gives the girl a mischievous smile, looking as if he's enjoying her idea. He then invites her to a small dark room so they can settle up. In reality, the protagonist only took her to the room to give her a stern moral lesson. The young woman is completely embarrassed by the situation and doesn't know what to say. With a stick in his hand, he begins to lecture the young woman on civics and values. He states that his specialty is the spiritual salvation of freshman girls who are about to lose their way. Su-sing warns the girl never to dare walk the path of crime again in her life. Over the following week, the young man accepts various missions to gather energy points. He is seen taking down numerous monsters to get the necessary money for the simulator. The girls he helps thank him profusely, telling him his work is amazing. He appreciates the support and tells them to find him the next time they need help. A week later, he finally gathers 200,000 yuan, which is converted into energy. Using the points, he starts the simulation, and the system asks if he wants a new talent. Spending 100 energy points, the protagonist decides to try his luck and see what he gets. The system congratulates him for obtaining the business elite talent, which helps him turn a profit. He thinks that even though it doesn't increase his strength, it will help him get rich in the simulation. With that, the simulation begins, and he's already selling items to the girls on campus. In 2 years, he monopolizes the second-hand market and opens a shop in Kyoto called the Tarot Club. 2 years later, his business has grown so much it has attracted the attention of very dangerous people. Just then, the protagonist is caught off guard by a red dagger pointed directly at him. The person behind the attack is Wang Qingshuan, who presses the blade against his neck. She invites him to join a mysterious organization, or she'll have to take him out. Su-sing questions her about the group, warning her that she is still greatly underestimating his power. With a snap of his fingers, he summons his backup, who were hidden nearby the whole time. 3 men in suits appear from nowhere and rush to attack the girl with everything they've got. But the young woman isn't intimidated in the slightest and charges at the henchmen without hesitation. With a swift move, she takes down all 3 men at once, showcasing her incredible strength. The girl displays an impressive power our hero didn't expect to see from her so soon. The young man is shocked to realize she has awakened as a Grandmaster-level professional. Back in reality, he thinks that not even a genius like Fatty Yu could reach the master level. But in just 5 years, she went from bronze to Grandmaster, which makes him highly suspicious. Returning to the simulation, the young woman says she doesn't want to hurt him since he helped her in the past. She seems to be struggling with the difficult decision she has to make but sees no other choice. The young woman then throws her dagger to the ground as a warning for him to listen carefully. In an unexpected move, she closes the distance and gives the protagonist a surprise kiss. In the next scene, he's in bed apologizing, saying he completely misunderstood her. But he finds out she passed away and can't understand how a Grandmaster could fall so easily. Su-sing vows revenge against the organization, certain they are behind it. He begins investigating the organization behind Wang Qingshuan but finds no clues. At the same time, he doesn't give up on finding a cultivation method, and in 2 years his body reaches its peak. Back in reality, the young man has his sister Nian promise she won't go into dungeons this year. The girl agrees to his request, though she looks a bit surprised by the demand. With her promise, our hero seems to feel a little more relieved about the situation. But in the simulation, his sister breaks her promise, enters a dungeon, and doesn't make it back. He then investigates her passing and discovers she fell in a place called Demon Pass. To make things worse, he also finds out his best friend Fatty Yu passed away that same year. Investigating further, he learns that his friend and most of his classmates met their end in the same place. That dungeon was like a meat grinder, devouring the lives of everyone he knew. He wonders what kind of place could cause the demise of so many professionals. Realizing everyone was forced to go, he decides to continue the simulation to learn more. This year, using his foreknowledge, he sold equipment and stocked up on many recovery potions. With that, he became a tycoon in Kyoto's low-level market and grew incredibly wealthy. But he didn't let his guard down, knowing a disaster was coming in 4 years, and he tried to warn everyone. However, his warning failed as no one believed his words about the future. Powerless to do anything, the young man decided he could only protect himself from the coming threat. 3 years later, he sold everything and moved to the US with his parents and billions of dollars. Classes there were unique, like vampires and werewolves, and the year of the giant beast finally arrived. He had hoped to escape the disaster, but a giant demon appears, and everyone is sent to fight on a one-way mission. The monster's giant eye stares down at everyone with a look of pure destruction and power. The protagonist wonders if more than one monster invaded the real world at the same time. The simulation ends with his passing at 36, and the system offers him rewards. Between the options of business elite and peak of body refinement, he quickly makes his choice. He chooses the peak of body refinement, and his strength becomes comparable to a silver ranker. The business talent brings in money, but refining the body gives him the power to acquire more items. Now he has access to better green rank equipment like a sword and armor. Thoughtfully, he questions if there's any way to avoid the catastrophe coming in 15 years. He suspects the powerful already know about the threat, but there's nothing they can do. So, they hid the truth from everyone to prevent panic from spreading across the world. Due to his special profession, his panel shows cultivation instead of a level, which is a problem. Even though he's stronger than an average silver rank, he knows it's still not enough. That's why he is determined to keep improving his strength for what's to come. A week later, he's gathered 400,000 yuan, which is enough for another simulation. He then uses 300 energy points, and the system asks if he wants a new talent. Without much thought, our hero decides to try his luck for a white talent. The system congratulates him for getting the white talent called Immortal Grudge. This ability allows him to linger for an extra day after his passing, which is quite useful. He realizes he can use this to get information from the enemy and starts the simulation. With his increased strength, he spends a year helping girls level up and earns 20 million. He didn't forget about Wang Qingshuan and always took her leveling, giving motivational talks. One day, the young woman finds him and says she received an invitation to join a mysterious organization. The young man realizes her situation is delicate and that she seems to be being forced to accept. Desperate, he hugs her tightly and begs the girl not to accept the group's invitation. But he couldn't stop her, and now he wonders if she went willingly or was taken by force. Sometime later, the protagonist runs into the missing young woman on the street and is happy to see her. He then approaches her, asking where she has been all these years and if she is okay. However, the girl avoids his gaze and seems unwilling to talk about her time away. Seeing that she didn't want to talk, the hero just comforts her, saying it's okay. The next morning, he wakes up to find the young woman gone, but she left something for him on the bed. The object she left behind was a green book with the title Changchun Gong on the cover. The young man is thrilled to see it's a real cultivation technique and feels a glimmer of hope. His happiness, however, is short-lived when he realizes the book is only half of the manual. Even so, he begins training day and night, but a month later his cultivation is still at level 1. Unwilling to give up, he puts all his focus in the technique to find a solution. After much thought, he finally gets an idea, believing the problem is the spiritual Qi. The root and the technique are ready, so the only reason he can't cultivate is the lack of QI. But he realizes there's no more time and decides he must speak with his sister and Fatty Yu first. So he returns to his hometown to save his sister, who had just graduated from college. They spent a wonderful and peaceful time together until their tranquility was shattered. Government agents appear and summon the hero's sister to the Demon Pass dungeon. With a furious look, he declares that he won't let them take her, no matter what. However, the young woman looks saddened by the situation and holds her brother's arm tightly. The young man then shouts that she has to listen to him because he is her older brother. At that moment, he is utterly shocked by what happens next. His sister unleashes a powerful aura and he is stunned to discover she is a grandmaster. The young woman reassures him, explaining the dungeon is mandatory for grandmasters and that she'll be back in a month. She then says a cheerful goodbye, even asking her brother to save some potato chips for her. But a month passes and the young man receives the terrible news that his sister did not survive. The protagonist still tries to stop Fatty Yu, but that attempt also ends in complete failure. The recovery potion market remains stable, and he earned a huge sum of money. Knowing he only had 4 years left, he sold his businesses and dedicated everything to finding spiritual Qi. Unfortunately, the young man spent an entire year on his search but found absolutely nothing. One day, while he was feeling down, a mysterious person finally found him in an alley. Completely confused, our hero asks who the man standing before him is. The mysterious man smiles and asks if he would talk to an ant he's about to step on. At that, the protagonist goes on high alert, sensing the enemy's hostile intent. In the blink of an eye, the mysterious man attacks him with an extremely fast kick. The young man wonders if the guy is silver level but quickly sees he's at least gold rank. Despite the power difference, our hero isn't intimidated and prepares to fight with all he's got. Even with the guy being gold rank, our hero believes he still has a fighting chance. His opponent is shocked by the young man's audacity, not understanding where such confidence comes from. The protagonist then charges at the mysterious man, initiating the combat. A large cloud of dust rises after the first clash between the two fighters. Looking into the smoke, the young man wonders if he managed to end the fight that quickly. But the enemy surprisingly appears behind him and grabs him before he can react. His adversary holds him by the neck and mocks him for being just a grandmaster or higher. With a look of contempt, the mysterious man laments the protagonist's situation. The enemy then prepares to deliver the final blow with a very sinister red aura. The system reports that the man ended his struggle, and he didn't make it through that simulation. At that moment, our hero's immortal grudge talent activates, buying him more time. The system screen also announces that the ability to not fall without vengeance has been triggered. Like a ghost, he challenges his adversary to try and take him down one more time if he's able. The guy picks up the cultivation book, and Su Sing understands he's also from the secret organization. Holding the book, the enemy gives a wicked and satisfied smile at his new acquisition. He then shatters the hero's spirit, and the simulation finally comes to its tragic end. Back in reality, the young man vows revenge and angrily flips off the system. He regrets not making it to the end of the world and sees the price of the art of longevity in the shop. The art costs 3,000 points, and he thinks he can afford it by selling some equipment. But he decides that with the other ability, he could discover the cause of the great catastrophe. He can farm the art of longevity, but if he loses the other ability, he might never get it again. So he chooses the talent and spends 1,000 energy points. Now he needs cash for the art. The young man returns to leading freshmen through dungeons to raise money, explaining his service rules. The girls praise him as he calculates that he needs a lot of money to buy items. With that in mind, the young man is filled with determination to get the money he needs. The protagonist is seen fighting several monsters at once inside a dungeon. He defeats them all with ease, and one of the girls praises the upperclassman for being incredible. Even surrounded by pretty young women, the hero looks tired but remains focused on his goal. With a smirk, he shows that he's enjoying how things are progressing. In 1 week, he manages to get 700,600 pieces of equipment, just as he expected. Determined, he declares that for his family and friends, he must embark on the path of cultivation. His eyes shine with a newfound resolution to change the tragic future he already knows. The system congratulates him on getting the white talent collected, also known as poker face. He complains about the new talent and yells for a refund, thinking the ability is useless. The following year, he takes girls into dungeons and fights monsters every single day. Though happy on the inside, he maintains the appearance of a gentleman due to his new talent. To avoid interfering, he intentionally decides to keep his distance from Wang Qingxuan. The young woman looks sad when she realizes he's purposely pulling away from her. Just like in previous simulations, she receives an invitation from the secret organization. The young woman comes to say goodbye, and when he fails to convince her, they spend the night together. He feels a bit awkward about it all, but can't deny he somewhat enjoyed what happened. Their night together was quite eventful, and they cherished every moment they had. The next day, the young woman dropped out of school, and a year later, he failed due to a lack of strength. He then left the school and opened the Tarot Club, hoping the girl would look for him. One day she finally appeared, and after one night together, she left behind the art of longevity. The young woman left him the book containing the cultivation technique he so desperately needed. Just like last time, he is unable to cultivate and decides to search for spiritual energy. This year, the protagonist once again failed to stop his sister from going to the dungeon. A month later, he learned of her passing, and a year after that, his friend Fatty Yu was also gone. He invested in the potion industry and planned to flee to escape the mysterious person. While planning his escape, he receives a call with information about spiritual energy. One of his men informs him that a grandmaster in Jinling has an item called a spirit stone. Wasting no time, he has them prepare a gift and immediately departs for the city. With a smile on his face, the young man speeds toward his destination to meet the grandmaster. The expert has agreed to meet him, and he can hardly wait to get his hands on the stone. But on the eve of the exchange, the mysterious person found him and attacked with everything they had. Our hero doesn't let it get him down and faces the danger head-on with great determination. The simulation shows he passed away at 33, and his talent was deactivated. Back in reality, he is furious with the result, and the system offers the rewards. Without hesitation, the young man chooses the art of longevity, spending 3,000 energy points. The system details that the art of longevity is from the Cloud sect and has 6 layers in total. Holding the book, he laughs and says this is much better than the fake manual he bought before. With his eyes closed, he begins to feel the energy flowing through his body as he practices the technique. A powerful bluish aura surrounds the hero's body as he tests his new power. He realizes the technique works, but extending his life is pointless if the world ends in 15 years. With the technique and the clue about the stone, he believes one more simulation will lead him to cultivation. But he doesn't know the stone's value, and his 800,000 only converts to 4,000 energy points. At that moment, someone calls him and says that old Liu is looking for him at the university. The protagonist complains that his friend Fatty Yu is going to break the door one of these days. Taking the chance, he asks his friend to lend him some money as he's in need. The chubby guy says he's a bit short on cash but tells his friend to say how much he needs. He then hands him a card with 5 million, saying the password is his birthday. Our hero is touched by the trust and generosity of his childhood best friend. His friend says 5 million is nothing and that there's no need for sentimentality between them. But the young man then asks for his birthday, which makes the chubby guy furious. Angrily, his friend jumps on him, yelling for him to give the money back immediately. Saying it was just a joke, the protagonist runs off to see Liu Xiaodong escaping from his friend. Arriving at the professor's office, he finds a bowl of hot water on the desk. Professor Liu asks how his training is going and if his cultivation level has increased lately. The young man sheepishly replies that he's training as usual and will try to reach silver rank soon. Professor Liu starts talking about the academy's assessment fees in relation to his cultivation level. The protagonist already figured this was coming and asks the professor to get to the point. The man then suggests that he voluntarily withdraw from the school for everyone's sake. Our young man retorts that this would only benefit the professor's performance review. He refuses to leave, claiming the environment is great for him with so many freshmen to choose from. The professor tries a different approach, saying he knows things aren't easy for the young man. He offers 500,000 in compensation if the young man voluntarily withdraws. On top of the money, the professor even offers him a security job at his condo. The hero remembers the professor promised him 3 million to enroll, and now humiliates him like this. He appreciates the concern but refuses the offer, stating the place is good for his cultivation. The professor loses his patience, yelling that he's no longer a prodigy but a burden. The young man scoffs, saying he understands and will redouble his efforts to be worth the investment. The professor is shocked by the young man's audacity, who even mocks the offer of 500,000. Our hero smiles as he sees on his phone that his order of 4,000 pieces of equipment is on its way. With the equipment's arrival, he can now proceed with the next system simulation. A week later, he starts the simulation, determined to extract the spirit stone this time. He's congratulated by the system for acquiring the talent. You've gone bald but not stronger. He runs a hand through his hair, relieved not to be actually bald. But then something happens. A clump of hair falls into his hand, leaving him completely shocked. Desperate, he yells, asking what kind of trash talent would make him go bald. He starts researching various products to try and solve his hair loss problem. Baldness affects his charm, and he loses many opportunities to get close to the freshman girls. With no other choice, he decides to shave his head completely, embracing the bald look in the mirror. For some reason, he now prefers fighting with his fists, taking down monsters with a single blow. Unexpectedly, his bald head gives him more charisma, and he earns 30 million in 1 year. The young woman doesn't care about his baldness and brings him half of the Eternal Spring art. He tells her he doesn't need the book and asks for her help in finding the other half. Just like before, the girl drops out of the academy, and he repeats his choice not to interfere. The young man wonders if his thoughts from reality are sent to the simulator in real time. He decides to let things play out to see how everyone's destiny unfolds. After the passings, he uses his benevolent appearance to make a fortune in the business world. Through his club, he searches for clues about the Spirit Stone, ordering to be notified of anything. One of his employees informs him about the Grandmaster and Jinling who possesses the stone. Back in reality, he's thrilled because now he knows the mysterious guy won't appear. An employee offers tea, informing him that the master will see him shortly. While waiting, a woman approaches and asks in a soft voice if he is Su Sing. She introduces herself as Jin Kongshu, a 40-year-old woman with a stunning appearance. The woman compliments his bald head, saying he seems well versed in Buddhism because of it. 7 days later, he activates his talent, and because she sees him as a Buddhist, she forms a great impression of him. The protagonist understands how the ability works and celebrates the success of his plan. Jin Kongshu reveals she has 3 spirit stones, noting their market value is 300 million. Without a second thought, the young man says he'll take all the stones she has. Since they are friends, she sells the stones for 30 million, and he thanks her for the generosity. With the stones in hand, he absorbs the energy from one and feels the power flowing through him. The protagonist's eyes shine brightly with the new energy he has just acquired. He's excited to see that half a stone was enough to reach the second level of refinement. With everything he needs, he can't wait to begin his cultivation path after the simulation. The woman invites him to eat, taking the opportunity to ask something that was on her mind. She tells him she brought the stones from a dungeon called the Blue Cloud Spirit Field. Besides the stones, she also got a bag of spiritual rice, which is what he is currently eating. The hero is surprised to learn he's eating spiritual rice at that very moment. He gets excited about the idea of a cultivation dungeon to infinitely farm spirit stones. She explains it was a limited-time dungeon that lasted only 7 days in November. Back in reality, he realizes he still has a chance to enter since the dungeon hasn't opened yet. Jin says an NPC told her she lacked the talent for cultivation, which is why she missed her chance. With a confident smile, the young man celebrates the fact that he has the necessary talent. He understands the stones are secondary, the opportunities within the dungeon are far more important. The young man decides to continue watching the simulation, as the future gains could be enormous. With the stones, his cultivation deepens, and his techniques constantly improve over time. While he was relishing his success, the woman appears to say her goodbyes. He asks if she's heading to Demon Pass, and the woman confirms his suspicion. She explains that pressure on the front lines is mounting, and as a Grandmaster, she must go. The protagonist gets irritated, wondering why everyone he knows has to go there. He demands that the woman tell him what Demon Pass is, insisting he needs to know. His talent activates, and his bald appearance increases the affection the woman feels for him. She reveals the place is humanity's lifeline, and there are incredibly powerful enemies there. Our hero asks what kind of enemies they face, but she says she can't say anything more. The woman says her farewells, promising they will meet again, but he calls out her name. A month later, the young man attends her funeral, feeling no sadness, only a desire to become stronger. With a cold, determined gaze, he decides to take drastic action regarding his assets. Over the phone, he asks about his total assets, and his secretary informs him it's 50 billion. Without hesitation, the young man orders her to sell everything he owns to invest in something else. His secretary is shocked by the order, but he tells her to trade it all for body refinement items. He leaves the house she gave him and returns to his old home with his new refinement items. 3 years pass and his cultivation improves, but he's still near the bone refining realm. Amid his thoughts, the world-destroying colossal beast finally appears in the sky. With a serious and prepared look, he says the day he's been waiting for has finally come. The giant creature opens its enormous mouth to devour everything in its path. The protagonist flips off the beast, swearing that one day, he will be the one to devour it. Fearlessly, he faces the giant monster as it prepares to swallow the entire city at once. At the last second, he activates his teeth with open eyes, talent to see what happens next. Back in reality, the young man is shocked by the scene unfolding before his eyes. He finds himself inside the giant beast's stomach and realizes people are still alive. Everyone panics as they see corrosive stomach acid starting to rise around them. A person is hit by the acid and their body begins to dissolve rapidly. The simulation shows his vision fading as his talent is then deactivated. He is terrified at the thought that someone survived inside the beast only to be corroded. The system offers several rewards and he analyzes each one very carefully. With a shout of joy, he celebrates having managed to bring back the spirit stones. The young man is surprised by the cheap price, calculating that each stone is worth 1,000 points. But he gets annoyed seeing the system recycles the stones for only 100 points each. He accepts the trade, hoping there are no resellers in the world profiting from the difference. With one of the stones in his hand, he begins to meditate and absorb its spiritual energy. A moment later, he notices the stone has shrunk and that one is enough for half a month. The young man decides to save the other two to test a theory he has in mind. Determined, he decides he needs to farm more stones before the special dungeon opens. A week later, he's exhausted from working so much but has achieved what he wanted. The young man has gathered over 500,000, enough for another simulation. With a confident smile, he prepares to start the next system simulation. He wonders if his theory about the stones is correct and continues the simulation. The simulation starts and he gains the fitness expert talent, which helps him train. He wonders why he's holding half a spirit stone right at the beginning of the simulation. Since he's there, he decides to start cultivating the stone's energy so as not to waste time. The following month, he makes money gaming with girls and uses his free time to cultivate. With the help of the stone, his cultivation advances rapidly, reaching the 4th level of refinement. On the phone, he asks someone to buy him a train ticket to Jinling as soon as possible. He takes a train to the park west of the city gate, where the dungeon is supposed to appear. At the location, he starts searching for the dungeon entrance but can't find anything. The young man wonders if he needs Jin Kongshu's help to find the dungeon's entrance. Suddenly, a female voice coldly tells him to get out of the way. He turns around and is surprised to see who the person speaking to him is. The woman was Jin Kongshu, but at 30 years old, looking much younger and more stunning. He realizes her version from 7 years ago was much colder and more distant than the current one. Our hero understands he needs to follow her to find the dungeon and starts to trail her. But he loses sight of her and wonders where she went, since he just saw her heading in that direction. The woman suddenly appears behind him, surprising him with her abrupt presence. With a sword in hand, she questions him with a serious look, asking why he's following her. The young man apologizes and asks if she is the senior Jin he saw on the honor roll. She is surprised to learn he is a student from the same university she attended. He introduces himself, saying he had a Buddhist question and that perhaps their meeting is fate. The woman agrees and, with a seductive look, tells him to ask his question without fear. With the air of a sage, he asks her which came first, the chicken or the egg. The young woman is shocked by the question, realizing he understands Buddhist paradoxes. He suggests they discuss the matter on the way and asks if he can travel with her. Arriving at the location, he is impressed by the beauty of the blue cloud spirit field. With a wicked smile, he feels the dense spiritual energy and knows a cultivator lives there. The young man spots a cabin and draws the woman's attention to the structure up ahead. She notes his cultivation is low and decides to knock on the door to ensure their safety. Knocking on the door, she asks if anyone is home to receive them. The door opens, revealing a golden light and a path of clouds leading into the cabin. An old man with horns appears, saying only those with deep karmic luck may enter. The young man warns the woman not to let her guard down, as the old man may not be so nice. The elder tasks them with tending his spiritual grain fields in exchange for an opportunity. The woman wonders if the host she received has any special ability for the task. The old man wishes them good luck, saying he will return in 7 days to inspect the results. The young woman panics, having never seen common grain, let alone knowing how to care for spiritual grain. The protagonist teaches her to roll up her pants to avoid getting her clothes dirty in the rice field. He reveals his parents are farmers and that he has worked in the field since childhood. The woman asks for his help, promising to reward him generously when they finish. With a wide smile, he says it's nothing and that she's being too formal with him. Under his care, the spiritual grain flourishes, and the woman's attitude becomes friendly. The young woman begins to look at the protagonist with a kinder, more interested gaze. He discovers his spiritual energy accelerates the plant's growth, making it great for the field. With the abundant energy, he decides to cultivate and infuse as much power as possible into the spiritual grain. His daily cultivation to the 5th level of refinement was not in vain, and he feels confident. 7 days pass, and the old man returns to see the results of their work in the field. The elder praises their work, saying he's not surprised they succeeded. The woman is also praised and thanks the old man for his generous reward for the service. Back in reality, he realizes that with his help, her reward was enhanced. The protagonist asks about the woman, and the old man sends her out of the instance with a flash of light. The elder explains he just sent her outside and that she is in no danger. The old man asks the young man to place his hand on an orb, and he obeys the elder's request. He discovers the young man has a 5-element spiritual root but no longevity. Our hero offers himself as a disciple, but the old man refuses, saying his aptitude is useless. The elder explains that with his aptitude, it would be pointless even if he were accepted as a disciple. The protagonist becomes thoughtful at the old man's refusal, wondering what he needs to be accepted. The elder says he would need at least a dual spiritual root to be his disciple. With this new information, he understands what he needs to get the opportunity he so desires. Back in reality, he realizes his root is white level and that he needs a green one. The old man gives him 30 stones and some rice, and the young man thanks him for his generosity. The old man points to the sky and bids the young man farewell before disappearing in a golden glow. The simulation continues, and 2 years later, his sister is summoned and perishes in the dungeon. A year later, he makes a fortune of 10 billion but can't save anyone he loves. He then meets the woman again and prepares to make her an offer she can't refuse. The young man says he wants to buy her stones and that price is not an issue for him. With a seductive smile, she says she doesn't need his money for the stone exchange. The woman approaches, saying she has a special condition for handing over the stones. Her condition was for him to spend a night with her, and the young man sees himself reflected in her eyes. A month later, he thinks that this way he will have no regrets, but the woman leaves him behind. The young woman is summoned, and a month later, news of her passing reaches the protagonist. 4 years pass and the sun-covering giant beast appears once again in the city. Just like the other times, he passes away at 36, unable to do anything. Back in reality, he decides he will stock up on spiritual rice from now on. He decides to take the spirit stones, but the price of 40,000 points startles him. The young man realizes all his money can only be exchanged for 2,000 energy points. With a determined look, he decides he needs to borrow some money from his friend. On the phone, he asks if his friend can hear him, and the young man is startled by the sudden call. His friend asks how much money he needs for his mysterious and urgent problem. With a pleading cat face, the protagonist asks his friend to lend him 100 million. His friend gets annoyed, saying he can only lend 50 million and not a penny more. With the money in hand, he thanks his friend for the help and then hangs up. With the 55 million, he decides to order 50,000 white-grade pieces of equipment. He needs to use the remaining 4 simulations to farm more stones and rice. A week later, he prepares to see if his luck will be good or bad in the simulation. The young man decides to spend a little more and tries his luck for a green rarity talent. The system congratulates him for getting the talent, live a long life, but he doesn't like it. At least he got 10 more spirit stones, so it wasn't a total loss in the end. A week later, he begs the system to grant him a spiritual root talent. The system congratulates him for getting the talent Sword Dao Genius, which infuriates him. He complains that he's not a sword cultivator and the talent is useless to him. The simulation ends and he decides that this time he will save and store the spiritual rice. He prays to be blessed with a green quality spiritual root. The system congratulates him for activating and getting the green rarity talent, Face of an Idol. The young man complains that he doesn't want to be a celebrity and that being handsome is useless. The system compliments him, saying that even it isn't immune to his charms, given how handsome he has become. With a new look, he glances in the mirror and is shocked by how handsome he's become. Inside a dungeon, he faces a red monster with sharp teeth and a deadly gaze. The demonic creature advances, wreathed in flames, to attack the group of adventurers. The protagonist warns everyone not to let their eyes meet the beasts. The girls are captivated by his beauty, and he scolds them for not being focused. He has counted 278 times that a girl has glanced at him furtively. The protagonist wonders if he is really so handsome as to attract this much attention. His beauty attracts crowds of women who follow him wherever he goes on campus. Numerous proposals come his way to become a celebrity, but he isn't interested. Angrily, he says he has better things to do and flees from all the crazy proposals. The young man laments how difficult it is to be so handsome these days with all the harassment. He decides to stay in his dorm and cultivate to avoid more problems with his appearance. On November 18th, he travels to Jinling and meets the woman as planned. The two meet again and the connection between them feels stronger than before. He invites her for a drink and the young woman accepts the invitation with a shy smile. The old man compliments the young man's beauty and he gets annoyed for not having used Buddhist verses. His appearance moved the old man, but his poor aptitude prevented him from being accepted. The elder gives him extra stones, hoping his beauty might last a little longer in the world. Back in reality, he laments that there is no hope for such a superficial world. The simulation concludes, and the system offers rewards for him to choose from. The system gives him a chance to use the Face of an Idol talent for free. The protagonist is excited about the chance to get a dual spiritual root next time. He decides to save the spirit stones for now and focus on his next objective. A week later, he uses the single-use talent to try his luck once more. With his new appearance, he feels confident and ready for whatever comes his way. He pleads with the system to grant him a green rarity spiritual root. Blowing a kiss to the screen, he tries to seduce the system to get what he wants so badly. The system congratulates him on obtaining the dual wood and fire root talent. This new ability replaces the old one, and now he can cultivate wood and fire techniques. The simulation begins, and he finally gets what he needed for his plan to succeed. With his new talent, he absorbs an entire spirit stone in just 1 day of cultivation. In 1 week, he raises his cultivation to the 5th level, his energy becoming more abundant. As planned, he meets the woman again, and the two receive the old man's mission once more. After completing the mission, the protagonist is invited to stay behind for a chat. The old man is impressed by his aptitude, saying he has potential for cultivation. His wood attribute is ideal for the fields, and the fire attribute gives him a chance in alchemy. The young man asks again to be accepted as the old man's disciple and bows respectfully. The elder says he started cultivating late, but the young man asks what level he would be at. The old man replies that he would be at least in the golden core realm if he had started earlier. Our hero understands he needs to reach that level before the dungeon opens to be accepted. He discovers he needs to channel energy into the jade scroll to see its contents. Surprised, he realizes the scroll contains a new and powerful cultivation technique. Determined, he decides to train hard to prepare for the coming apocalypse. In 6 years, he learns the art of nurturing spirits and harvests 500 grams of rice. After consuming the spiritual rice, his body successfully advances to the bone-forging realm. He offers the spiritual rice he cultivated in exchange for 20 of the woman's spirit stones. The young woman licks her lips with a seductive look, preparing to make a counter-proposal. She says she will be in his care for the next month, and the two spend the night together. Lying in bed, he wonders why the sky suddenly darkened without any warning. The giant beast appears once more, and he laments that this has happened again. The simulation ends, and the system offers him a list of rewards to choose from. He is shocked to see the cultivation technique costs 1 billion energy points. The dual route is a unique chance, but he can ask the old man for the technique in the real world. The system congratulates him on obtaining the dual route, warning that the new ability will replace the old one. He wonders what Culverite means and becomes concerned about the change in his power. The young man is relieved to realize the change is just an upgrade and nothing to worry about. With one final simulation, he aims for the divine level realm to achieve his goal. A week later, he has to run the simulation on an airplane, as the day coincided with the instance. Seated on the plane, he prepares himself and tells the system to start the last simulation before the event. The system congratulates him on obtaining the resolute face talent, which helps him gain confidence. After landing, he goes to meet the woman as usual to start his plan once again. His talent activates, and the young woman wonders why this junior seems so trustworthy. He invites her to go together, and the woman agrees to go with the flow without much questioning. The old man is surprised that he wants 1,000 stones and not to become his disciple. The protagonist confirms his request and bows in respect to the elder of the sacred mountain. The old man says his cultivation isn't high enough and hands him a bag with the stones. With the 1,000 stones, he cultivates day and night, and over time, everyone he knew is gone. He emerges from seclusion with his eyes shining with power as a cry of strength echoes. The young man reaches the 9th level of establishment but runs out of stones near the gold level. The simulation ends as he is about to be swallowed by the giant beast once again. Back on the plane, he sighs in relief, having survived another dangerous simulation. The system offers rewards, and he analyzes the options with great care and attention. He regrets having only reached the 9th level of establishment due to a lack of stones. The young man cheers up, remembering he can use the abundant spiritual energy of the blue field. With a smile, he realizes it's no longer a simulation, everything is now reality. He calms himself, remembering he is the man who memorized the 10 dilemmas of the Buddhist scripture. Hiding behind a tree, he spots the woman and prepares to put his plan into action. The young woman appears in her red dress, her stunning beauty catching everyone's attention. The protagonist is enchanted, thinking no one would guess she is already 30 years old. He approaches her, asking if she is the senior he saw on the campus's expert list. The young man says their meeting is fate and asks if she is also going to Jinling. He is saddened to realize that to her, he is just a stranger with no talent whatsoever. Our hero decides to use his trump card and purposely starts dropping several books on the ground. The woman is surprised by the scene and doesn't understand what the young man is trying to do. He laments, saying he worked hard to find all those books in the old bookstore. The woman is surprised to see the book and asks if he happens to study Buddhism. He replies with a charming smile that it's just a small, unimportant hobby. The young woman asks if he knew she liked Buddhism, and he says he read her thesis. With a smile, she says their meeting is fate and invites him to go to Jinling together. He agrees, thinking that now he just needs to wait for the instance to appear for his plan to work. The woman laughs at him for discussing whether Shakyamuni was illegitimate, calling him childish. The young man tenses up, knowing the instance should appear there at any moment. Suddenly, a bright light catches his attention, and he alerts the woman to the mysterious glow. The two come across a glowing portal and realize it's a temporary instance. Protagonist is thrilled, he's finally going to enter a real-world instance. With a confident smile, he believes that this time he will succeed in becoming the old man's disciple. The woman warns him not to enter, as temporary dungeons are dangerous for him. With a seductive look, he says he has her to protect him, so nothing will happen. The young woman gets flustered, wondering if he really trusts her that much to risk his life. She tells him not to leave her side, and the two enter the dungeon together for the mission. The landscape is breathtaking, with green rice fields and mountains in the background. He realizes the experience of being there is completely different from the system's simulation. The dense spiritual energy excites him, and he knows he can advance significantly if he cultivates there. The woman warns him not to let his guard down, as dungeons hide deadly dangers. Suddenly, a voice calls out to them, and the old man appears to welcome them at the instant's entrance. The old man asks how they found his hideout, and they explain it was through a 7-colored entrance. The elder says fate brought them together and offers an opportunity to them both as a gift. He asks for help tending his spiritual field as he's too busy with cultivation. With a smile, the young man says it's no problem and that they can help the old man with the task. He whispers to the woman that the old man is kind, but it's a shame this is only a temporary dungeon. With a confident smile, the protagonist says he works in the fields every year in his hometown. He gets to work, explaining that the first step is to pull out all the weeds from the field. Next, he explains is irrigation to keep the soil moist and fertile. Finally, he secretly channels spiritual energy to help the grains grow better. The woman approaches, asking why the old man's trial in a dungeon involves farming. She questions if there is some secret behind the seemingly simple task they received. The young man says it doesn't matter and that farming can also be a form of self-cultivation. He thinks that for someone without a spiritual root, the rewards would be minimal, but for him it's different. The young man knows this place is worth as much as 10,000 spirit stones for his cultivation. The old man is shocked to see the result of their work in his spiritual field. 7 days later, the woman waters the plants with a ladle, and the plantation glows with energy. The young woman is startled by the golden glow emanating from the spiritual rice plantation. The protagonist takes advantage of the dense energy to meditate and enhance his cultivation. With his eyes glowing, he concentrates to absorb as much power as he can. He reaches the peak of establishment, just one step away from the coveted golden core level. The old man says his cultivation isn't high enough and hands him a bag with the stones. With the 1,000 stones, he cultivates day and night, and over time, everyone he knew is gone. He emerges from seclusion with his eyes shining with power as a cry of strength echoes. The young man reaches the 9th level of establishment but runs out of stones near the gold level. The simulation ends as he is about to be swallowed by the giant beast once again. Back on the plane, he sighs in relief, having survived another dangerous simulation. The system offers rewards, and he analyzes the options with great care and attention. He regrets having only reached the 9th level of establishment due to a lack of stones. The young man cheers up, remembering he can use the abundant spiritual energy of the blue field. With a smile, he realizes it's no longer a simulation, everything is now reality. He calms himself, remembering he is the man who memorized the 10 dilemmas of the Buddhist scripture. Hiding behind a tree, he spots the woman and prepares to put his plan into action. The young woman appears in her red dress, her stunning beauty catching everyone's attention. The protagonist is enchanted, thinking no one would guess she is already 30 years old. He approaches her, asking if she's the senior he saw on the campus's expert list. The young man says their meeting is fate and asks if she is also going to Jinling. He is saddened to realize that to her, he is just a stranger with no talent whatsoever. Our hero decides to use his trump card and purposely starts dropping several books on the ground. The woman is surprised by the scene and doesn't understand what the young man is trying to do. He laments, saying he worked hard to find all those books in the old bookstore. The old man says the art he possesses is sufficient and that he shouldn't be greedy. The protagonist tries to warn that his technique is just a fragment, but the master is already gone. He wonders if the old man did it on purpose, if it was a mistake or some kind of test. Alone in the field, he realizes he will have to find the rest of the art on his own. Under the moonlight, a voice calls his name, pulling him from his deep thoughts. The woman says he's finally out and has something to ask him about the reward. She offers to trade 50 caddies as spiritual rice for his 50 spirit stones. The young woman claims she only got the rewards because of him and that it's only fair to share. The young man is flustered by her generous offer and doesn't know what to say. She suggests he accompany her back to the city if he's too shy to accept. In the hotel room, the two prepare for a special night with candles and a romantic atmosphere. Holding a glass of wine, she asks if he came to Jinling to look for someone. The woman looks at him with a seductive gaze, offering to help with whatever he needs. She is surprised by the young man's reaction, as he seems unfazed by her charms. The hero discovers that time in the dungeon flows at the same speed as in the real world. He announces he's going to the bathroom, leaving her alone in the room for a moment to think. The young woman wonders if the color of her outfit is the reason for his reaction. In the bathroom, he starts the simulation, wondering if the apocalypse is still going to happen. The woman knocks on the door, asking if he's finished with what he was doing. Worried, she asks if something happened as he's taking a long time. He says nothing is wrong and opens the bathroom door to reassure her. The young woman is relieved to see him, and he thanks her for her concern. She suggests he take a shower after a long day, and the two have dinner together. The young man holds her hand tightly, and the woman stares at him in surprise. With a seductive smile, she asks if he's still planning to eat again tonight. The woman throws herself into his arms, and the two enjoy the night together once more. They spend another peaceful week together, and the woman becomes increasingly energetic. Exhausted, he thinks that at least he can finally resume the system simulation. The simulation begins, and he enters the mystical realm his master granted him as a gift. He believes that with the spiritual rice, his cultivation will now progress much faster. The young man delights in the incredible taste of the spiritual rice, feeling his power increase. The sensation and flavor leave him extremely satisfied and excited with the result. Every day, he tends to the field of spiritual grains in his portable blessed land. His strong and powerful body allows him to eat a whole caddy of rice in a single meal. With a shout, he unleashes his energy and successfully advances to the bone-forging realm. He celebrates the rapid advancement, realizing just how miraculous the spiritual rice truly is. The hero believes the strong lord talent also helped and decides to extract it from the simulation. His cultivation speed absorbs him, and he spends his free time helping freshmen in dungeons. Girls line up to group with him, and his success rate in dungeons only increases. With the money he earned, he returns the card he borrowed from his friend Fatty U. Fatty U praises how quickly his friend is making money, having accumulated 50 million. His friend tells him the girl wants to meet him in the forest behind the school that night. This time, he doesn't stop her from joining the group, merely asking her to be careful. That night, the two practice many new moves together in the dark forest. He encourages her to join the organization to find the complete version of the Changchun art. After she leaves, he continues cultivating, and in 2 years he reaches the 7th level of forging. In his 3rd year, he reaches the 9th level of bone forging, and his power increases even more. In his 4th year, he achieves the great perfection of the realm, but hits a bottleneck in his cultivation. He discovers he needs a higher grade spiritual plant to continue advancing. The young man remembers his master left some seeds for him and starts searching. Amidst the mess, he finally finds a small bag with the seeds he needed. Reading a book, he discovers the plant is white jade ginseng and learns how to cultivate it. He is shocked to read that the plant needs 10 years to fully mature. The hero realizes the plant will only be ready after the apocalypse, making it useless. Unfazed, he gets the idea of feeding animals spiritual rice to see what happens. He feeds some chickens, and the survivors grow stronger and smarter. While distracted with his project, the girl returns with the first part of the art. He tells her he doesn't want the technique, and that he actually wants to join her organization. The young man asks if she can recommend him, and the young woman says she has the right to do so. He hugs her in gratitude, and the girl responds with a shy, embarrassed smile. They arrive at the Advent Church, and the woman announces that Su Sing has arrived for the meeting. A mysterious voice tells him to enter, and the two walk through the church's main hall. The voice asks if he is Su Sing, and the young man wonders why the place is so dark. The elder tells him to sit, and the hero thanks him while analyzing the man's strange voice. The young woman serves him tea, and the young man thanks her with a gentle smile. The elder explains the church name is Advent and begins to speak of its doctrine. Our hero spits out his tea upon hearing their goal is to eliminate the tyranny of humanity. The man claims humanity is not worthy to rule and that foreign races are the gods. The young man wonders if he's in a cultivation story or a cosmic horror novel. The elder warns him there is no turning back after joining, and the protagonist confirms his decision. He says he will give everything to the church once he gets the second part of the Changchun art. The elder explains he can trade missions or treasures for the desired cultivation technique. The young man wonders if the spiritual rice he possesses counts as a treasure for the exchange. With a smile, he offers the rice, and the elder is surprised he possesses such an item. The man disappears, and moments later, another elder appears with several hooded men. He is tied up, and the new elder strikes him, demanding to know where he got the rice. Though injured, the young man refuses to say a single word to protect his secret. The simulation shows he was tormented until his passing at 29, and his talent activates. One of the men mocks him and ain't daring to dream of immortality. The talent fails, and the simulation ends with the elder being praised for his wisdom. Back in reality, he wonders who the man was that took him out in the simulation. The system announces the simulation has ended, and he comes to with a cold sweat on his forehead. He feels like he's seen that person before but doesn't know if it's imagination or a memory. The system offers him a list of rewards to choose from after the simulation's end. He decides to deal with the church later and focuses on choosing his reward from the system. The young man laments that he can only bring back one reward, wishing he could take all the options. He chooses the Strong Lord talent, which costs 10,000 energy points to acquire. With the new talent, he believes he will reach the great perfection of the bone-forging realm. The young man realizes he has less than 2,000 points and needs money fast to continue. Over the phone, he calls the woman and asks if she is free to meet with him. At the hotel, he meets with the young woman to make a very important business proposal. She is surprised to learn he wants to sell 50 caddies of spiritual rice to her. He confirms and asks her to give him an estimate of the rice's value. The woman asks if he's short on money and offers to lend him some. The young man asks how much she can lend, wondering if it would be 50 million like last time. She agrees to the loan, and the protagonist spits out his drink, shocked at how easily she agreed. The young woman reveals that 100 million wouldn't be a problem, as her grandfather is the guild president. He then asks for 100 million, offering the 50 caddies of rice as interest for the loan. She advises him to save the rice for his cultivation and not to sell it to just anyone. The protagonist thinks he can't let the woman be targeted by the Advent Church because of him. With a passionate look, the woman agrees to the protagonist's request without hesitation. Back in his room, the young man feels tired but happy to be in his bed again. He throws himself on the bed, lamenting being buried in debt after borrowing the money. The young man thinks of a way to make money, considering selling the rice and spiritual chickens. Discouraged, he decides to simulate first to see what happens before making a decision. The simulation begins, and he gains the green talent Indomitable, which increases his willpower. He stretches and decides to look for business opportunities with the gifts from his master. The young man discovers he can create abstinence pills and beauty pills with his recipes. He realizes both are profitable and can be sold to different, wealthy audiences. Excited by the idea, he decides he will refine these two types of pills to sell. The first step is to heat the alchemy furnace to begin the refining process. Using a lighter, he tries to light the furnace but doesn't get the expected result. A small flame explodes in his face, leaving him surprised by the furnace's power. The furnace explodes with impressive force, throwing him far away with the impact. Covered in soot, he realizes a lighter won't work and decides to read the art of alchemy. He discovers he needs a professional flame formula to refine the pills. Determined to turn his debt into wealth, he begins studying the leaf fire formula. During this period, the woman visits him, and the two spend time together again. After one night, she joins the Advent Church, leaving him behind once more. In the second year, he starts mastering the fundamentals and dedicates his time to understanding leaf fire. With a satisfied smile, he celebrates mastering the leaf fire art after 6 years of work. He realizes the flame can be used for defense, not just for alchemy. Back in reality, he's excited to finally have an offensive formula to use. The young man wonders what kind of pills he can refine with such a powerful flame. He dedicates himself entirely to pill refining, and his mastery of fire grows each day. In the 7th year, he attends his sister's funeral and then returns to studying the leaf fire formula. With a shout of hope, he unleashes the flames and begins the pill refining process. The abstinence pills come out perfectly, and now he prepares for the beauty pill. He realizes the beauty pill is more difficult than expected and tries his best. 3 years later, he finally succeeds in refining the beauty pill. With the pill in his mouth, he says it's time to witness a miracle. He looks in the mirror and wonders why nothing is happening, questioning if he failed again. Suddenly, he feels a strange movement in his stomach and something unexpected occurs. A flower emerges from his rear, leaving him completely shocked and speechless. With a terrible stomach ache, he rushes to the bathroom as fast as he can. The scene shifts to the bathroom, where a loud sound of flatulence echoes. He exits the bathroom surrounded by a cloud of gas, a horrible smell lingering around him. Looking in the mirror, he is surprised by the change in his appearance after taking the pill. His skin is soft and white, and the wrinkles around his eyes have completely vanished. He decides to refine a few more and fix the side effect to sell them to rich women. At the hotel, the young man shows the beauty pill to the woman, preparing to sell it. The young woman doubts the pill can truly rejuvenate someone as he promises. He assures her he has never lied to her and that the pill is as powerful as he claims. Curious, she decides to try the pill to see if the effect is real or just a hoax. A colorful glow envelops her body, and the young man yells for her to wait a moment. The woman is enveloped in an intense light as her body begins to undergo a transformation. He holds up a mirror for the young woman, asking her to see the result of the pill. Shocked, she realizes she's back in her 20s, her appearance now flawless. The woman offers 100 million per pill, saying she will buy all that he has. The protagonist is stunned by the price, unable to believe the value she offered. The young woman asks him to sell the rest, stating she will buy as many as he has in stock. He admits he has no more, as that was the only one he managed to make. She asks if he can't mass-produce them, and he says he'll look into it. Back at school, he reunites with the girl who is eagerly awaiting his return. With a smile on her lips, the young woman welcomes him back with a loving and happy look. The young woman runs towards him, greeting him with a warm and heartfelt hug. He calls her by name, surprised to see her there after being away for so long. The girl drops out of school again, and this time, he doesn't stop her from following her path. A few years later, she becomes a grandmaster and returns to find the protagonist. The young woman brings him the upper volume of the Changchun art as a special gift. He says he doesn't want the technique and that his only wish is to join the Advent Church. The young woman introduces him to the elder, explaining he must contribute to the church to join. The protagonist tells the elder to speak, ready to hear the mission he will be given. The girl tries to intervene, saying the mission is too important for a novice like him. The elder agrees, telling her to arrange a more suitable mission for the young man. Our hero suspects the mission is difficult, as the young woman rarely acts on her own. He discovers the mission is to go to Demon Pass and cooperate with the demon race. The woman calls it a suicide mission, not wanting him to risk himself like that. Lying together, he asks why she joined the church and betrayed the human race. She replies with a sad look that she had no other choice but to follow this path. The young woman calls him by his name, and the young man looks at her with a serious, questioning gaze. He realizes he won't get any information from her in this system simulation. At the market, he complains about the price of ginseng, discovering the demand for potions has increased. He suspects the Advent Church's actions are causing the high demand for potions. Worried and powerless, he feels frustrated with the situation, unsure of what to do. To distract himself, he works hard to develop a weaker version of the beauty pill. He discovers he can refine the pill without ginseng, allowing for mass production. Excited by this news, he rushes to Jinling to tell the woman the good news. A mysterious figure with an umbrella watches him from afar with a sinister look. He notices the presence and, with a serious expression, says the day has finally come. He watches the woman's funeral, wondering when he will discover the truth about the apocalypse. The desolate landscape makes him question the future and the fate that awaits him. Suddenly, a mysterious figure calls him a traitor and attacks him with a dark aura. The young man recognizes the man as Elder Zong, staring at him with surprise. The elder attacks him, declaring he was indeed sent by the Jin family to spy on them. The simulation ends with his demise, and he returns to reality, his heart racing with confusion. He is torn between the rewards, wishing he could take both at the same time. The young man yells at the system, daring it to let him take both rewards at once. The system offers an upgrade for 500,000 points, and he suspects a hidden talent. He accepts the risk, spending the money to upgrade the simulator and see what happens. The system is updated, allowing him to choose the 2 rewards he wanted so badly. The total cost is 110,000 points, and he laments that money is never enough. On the phone, he offers 20 caddies of rice to the woman, but she says she doesn't have time. Desperate, he throws himself on the floor and cries, unable to get the money he needs. The young woman deposits 20 million into his account, telling him to use the money first. Emotionally, he wonders if this is what it's like to be supported by a rich woman. The protagonist celebrates the money, preparing for the next simulation with a smile. He stretches and says that now he just needs to wait a week for the next simulation. The young man wonders how many years younger he would become if he took a beauty pill. A week later, he initiates the simulation with a tap on the screen to begin the process. The system congratulates him on obtaining the green talent, endless luck, for the simulation. Aiming to accumulate alchemy experience, he begins practicing without hesitation. He wonders if the high survival rate of the chicks is an effect of his new talent. The success rate of the pills has also increased, and he manages to create a high-quality item. With the pills ready, he calls the woman, preparing to make an offer she can't refuse. He invites her to Jingdu, having something good to show her in person. The young man says he has something that can give her the ultimate pleasure, showing her the beauty pill. The young woman is flustered by his insinuation but agrees to meet him that night. He tries to explain the misunderstanding, but she has already hung up and is on her way. Our hero shows her the pills and asks how much she thinks they might be worth on the market. The woman is impressed with the pills and decides to help him sell them at an auction. The pills are a hit, with bids reaching a final price of 3 million for the item. He is shocked to see the mountain of money, wondering if this is what it feels like to be rich. With the woman's influence, he no longer needs to worry about money in the future. The young man is moved by the feeling of financial freedom for the first time in his life. The moon shines in the sky as he prepares for his next journey with a new objective. With his suitcase in hand, he walks down the street towards the school for protection. He thinks that women will do anything for beauty and that the school is a safer place. The young man steps on something on the ground and is startled by what he sees at his feet. The journey was not smooth. He stumbles into a trap, falling into a deep hole. A woman pushes him, and he is frightened by the unexpected force of her attack. She teases him, saying that falling into the same hole must be their destiny. One woman steals the pill while another ties him up, declaring he is her man now. One of the women threatens him with a knife, and he laments the situation he's in. He flees from a crowd of women and finally manages to return to the safety of the campus. Exhausted, he reaches his dorm, relieved to finally be back. Determined to focus on refining, he plans to advance to the 3rd realm of body cultivation. That same year, he receives news of his sister's passing and begins to live in seclusion. One of his spiritual chickens explodes in a ball of fire, startling him with its power. He realizes the organ-tempering realm cannot be broken through with brute force. The young man reads about the 5-organ pill, which strengthens the viscera and intestines. He decides he can spend the required 3 years cultivating the pill's ingredients. 3 years later, he has enough ingredients to refine the long-awaited organ pill. The first step is to use fire to heat the yellow immortal essence until it becomes viscous. The furnace explodes once again, sending chicks flying from the force of the blast. Coughing, he complains that this is much harder than he initially imagined. He doesn't give up, and his control over the fire becomes increasingly proficient over time. The young man is frustrated that he can refine qi, gathering powder, but not the 5-organ pill. Various different pills appear on the floor, but none are the one he so desperately needs. He realizes the powder can increase his spiritual energy, making pill refining easier. Days pass, and an unexpected guest knocks on the protagonist's door during his seclusion. He opens the door to find an older man who introduces himself as Kongshu's father. The young man invites him in, and the man says he has come for only 2 important matters. The young woman's father reveals that his daughter is gone, and the hero wonders if it's that time again. He asks for the second reason, and the man shows him one of the pills he refined. The man asks if he refined the pill, and the young man explains the item's effect to him. The woman's father says he will buy all the pills, and the young man questions why he wants them. The man is embarrassed by the question, but the protagonist insists on knowing the truth. The young man states he will only refine more pills if he is told the truth behind the request. The man reveals that the situation at Demon Pass is becoming increasingly difficult for humans. His pill can help practitioners save time eating and return to the battlefield. The protagonist is shocked to learn the situation is so dire there isn't even time to eat. He agrees to refine the pills, and the man thanks him, promising not to be short on payment. Our hero wonders what happened at Demon Pass that caused everyone to go there to perish. His intuition tells him this is his chance to learn the truth, and he decides to risk it. The man hands over a box filled with gold bars as payment for the refined pills. The young man says he doesn't want the money, and the man asks what he desires in return. He asks to meet high-level army officials, offering the pills as a gift. The man agrees to relay the request but warns the final decision is not his. The two get into a car, and the young man asks where they are going for the meeting. The man hands him a blindfold, asking him to put it on before they proceed. The young man complies, placing the blindfold over his eyes to follow the man's orders. He feels uneasy but takes the risk, entering the luxury car with an unknown destination. The car stops and the man announces they have finally arrived at their mysterious destination. The protagonist removes the blindfold and asks if they are at the agreed-upon meeting place. He finds himself at the People's Altar, where the most powerful people of Dixia reside. A voice invites him to enter, and he realizes the man is at least of the martial emperor level. The woman's father says he can only take him this far, and the young man thanks him for his help. With trembling hands, he opens the door, preparing for what he will find inside. He is surprised to see the person waiting for him and can't hide his reaction. The man introduces himself as Liu Yuanwu, one of the leaders of the Dixia army, and greets him. He asks if the slimming pill is what they are now calling a military provision pill. The leader wonders what the world has come to for a diet pill to become a military item. The man states he wants the pill's formula, and the reason is none of the protagonist's business. The young man hands over the formula, warning that the army won't be able to use it as it requires spiritual rice. He offers the formula for free, saying he only wants to know what happened at Demon Pass. The young man explains he needs to understand how his sister, his friend, and the woman passed away there. The leader agrees to tell him but warns that the information must be kept secret. He reveals that Demon Pass is a human city where everyone fights for the future of humanity. The protagonist is surprised to see so many students and teachers from his university there. The leader agrees that he is correct and decides to reveal more about the situation to him. He explains that the situation at Demon Pass has worsened, and nearly all the Grandmasters have perished. The protagonist is shocked by the news, unable to believe what he has just heard. The man points to the barrier, saying that everyone he knew met their end inside. He advises him to stay in the city and refine pills for everyone without going any further. The young man knows the truth, but it brings him no joy, and he desires to see the battlefield. 2 guards prevent him from leaving, stating he cannot leave without the chief's permission. He realizes the excuse of being lost won't work on these guards. With a shout of "Open," he launches a purple energy sphere to distract the men. He is proud of being a genius in pill refining and for mastering the technique so quickly. The guards hear the noise and rush to see what happened to the young man in the room. Our hero launches the energy spheres at them, apologizing for what he is about to do. The spheres release a purple smoke that leaves the 2 guards completely incapacitated. He covers his nose and flees the room as the guards shout for him not to go. The young man prepares to enter the protective barrier to discover the truth for himself. He walks towards the barrier, determined to unravel the mysteries of that place. With the mask on his face, he is surprised by what he finds on the other side. A giant purple demon appears and he realizes his preparations were insufficient. An old warrior shouts for everyone to attack the demonic creature's left eye. Everyone charges forward to attack the giant monster, trying to blind it for an advantage. But the warriors are sent flying with a single swipe of the giant monster's paw. The old man yells for everyone to spread out and try to regroup for another attack. The demon scoffs at them, saying they are overestimating themselves by trying to face it. One of the warriors retorts that it's the monster who is overestimating itself. With a precise strike, the warrior manages to hit the creature's eye, blinding it. The old man shouts for everyone to seize the opportunity and attack the monster with everything they have. Furious, the demon unleashes a wave of energy, declaring that everyone there can perish at once. Even blinded, it laughs, saying they cannot defeat it as it is immortal and powerful. The old man vows to avenge his disciples and charges for a final attack against the creature. With his sword, he pierces the monster's head, which screams in pain from the direct hit. The demon swears to take the old man with it, preparing for one last desperate attack. The creature explodes in a wave of energy, and the young man is shocked by the number of casualties. He wonders if this is how his sister and the others met their end in that place. The leader says that the mountains and rivers of Dixia will never forget the brave who have fallen. The man advises him to go home, as there is nothing left for him in this desolate place. The leader's words make him realize that Demon Pass has already fallen, and the invasion is imminent. With a hand sign, he prepares to refine the pill, channeling his pain into strength. He finally succeeds in refining the 5-organ pill, celebrating his success in alchemy. Eagerly, he swallows the pill to advance his cultivation, preparing for the coming war. But the pill was unstable, and he instantly explodes into a cloud of smoke and dust. The simulation ends, and the system offers a list of rewards for the protagonist to choose. He is shocked to realize he was taken out by a pill he himself refined so carefully. The young man remembers using a 3-year-old immortal essence to make the pill. He understands the pill's potency was too strong, causing his body to explode. The young man decides to acquire the art of alchemy to refine his pills more safely. He chooses the talent and the art, spending 110,000 points, and mourns the loss of an ally. Our hero discovers that the giant beasts have always existed and that the apocalypse is near. The creatures were simply blocked by Demon Pass, which is now on the verge of collapse. He feels relieved to still have 15 years to prepare and save himself from the end of the world. The woman admires her new appearance, noticing her dark circles and crow's feet have vanished. With a smile, she says she feels 20 years old again, her beauty radiant. He nicknames it the Critch Woman's Happiness Pill and asks if she thinks it will sell well. The woman transfers 100 million to him, and the young man is shocked by the amount on the screen. She offers 1 million per pill, and he is astounded by the true power of a rich woman. The protagonist is moved, finally understanding what it feels like to be a celestial dragon. He says it's not about the money, but because the pill's effects don't stack. The woman asks if he's forgotten her last name, and the young man remembers it's Jin. He finally understands the woman's origins, realizing the truth about her family. She reveals she is the only daughter of the Jin Merchant Guild, confirming his suspicions. With a seductive look, the woman displays her power and wealth to the protagonist. She says she won't keep them all, and plans to auction some of the pills as well. The protagonist states he doesn't want the money, but needs her guild's help. He asks to trade everything for great equipment, and the woman questions him. Clasping his hands, he begs, saying he can't explain but desperately needs the items. The young woman warns that an order for 5,000 pieces could attract official attention. She suggests a plan to create an association and discreetly buy low-grade equipment. The young man decides their association's name will be the Tarot Club, just like in the simulation. The woman clears her throat to get his attention, preparing to make a proposal. She approaches with a seductive look, saying that now that everything is settled, they should. The young woman looks at him with a passionate gaze, inviting him to enjoy the rest of the night. Our hero jumps out the window, saying he'll leave the association to her and return to school. The woman yells for him to wait, but he's already gone, leaving her alone in the hotel room. Angrily, she complains that he always uses her, and then disappears without a trace. Back in his dorm, he decides to test the immersive simulation mode of the updated system. The system congratulates him on acquiring the talent, Magnificent Bearing, which attracts the opposite gender. He complains about the talent and flips off the system, demanding a refund. The simulation begins, and he focuses on body refining to correct his previous mistake. This time, he decides to cut the medicinal potency in half to ensure it's safe. Day after day, he refines his body and tends to his tasks in the Blessed Land. The protagonist once again reaches the great perfection stage of the bone-forging realm. With a cry of power, the young man unleashes his energy, preparing for the next step of his plan. He prepares to consume the organ, refining pill, but fears something will go wrong again. The protagonist thinks maybe he should let Jin Kongshu test the pill first, since he can't afford to perish. He decides he still needs to strengthen his body, and for that, he'll need more nutrition. With that, he looks at his spiritual chickens, saying it's their time to help out. The young man then starts chasing the chickens with a knife to turn them into his dinner. With a sinister look, he warns that if they don't lay eggs, he'll be making chicken soup at night. Then, the woman says she tested the pill, it's incredible but painful, and asks him to give it to Lu Yuanwu. She's surprised by how the young man refers to the man, teasing him for calling him Old Lu. With her help, he met Lu Yuanwu, who became very interested in the organ refining pill. The hero thinks that if military cultivators use his pills, they might survive the apocalypse. After achieving his goal, he started eating spiritual chicken eggs every day. He hoped to strengthen his body enough to safely consume another pill. One day, while roasting a chicken, the woman's voice suddenly called out from somewhere. A portal opens in his room, and he is startled to hear her voice calling his name. Without a second thought, the young man runs towards the portal, saying he's on his way to meet her. He then steps through the portal and finds himself in a hallway, where he opens a mysterious door. On the other side, he is shocked by what he sees, wondering what on earth is happening. The woman appears, saying there's no time for explanations, and that he needs to go with her now. Without giving him time to react, the young woman grabs him and pulls him away from the danger. The young woman rushes him towards a helicopter that was already waiting for them. Confused, the young man asks if a helicopter isn't a bit of an exaggeration and what's going on. She then replies with a smile that his organ refining pill has performed a remarkable feat. With a smile, the hero celebrates, as his plan to attract the attention of the powerful has finally worked. They arrive at the Sky People's Temple and are greeted by several high-ranking officials. As they disembark from the helicopter, some men approach to greet their leader. The man says that according to their calculations, 5 pills can increase a master's strength by 50%. With a serious look, the old man asks how many pills our hero can produce per month. The young man replies at most 200, and the young woman calculates they can create 2 grandmasters. The leader smiles, saying this is monumental, not just for Dacia but for all of humanity. He then offers the young man third sequence privileges if he can maintain production. The young woman explains that even Cold Lu is only second sequence, which shocks him. She says very few people hold this status, and now he is number one in humanity. Our hero asks if he can find out if immortal cultivation instances exist in this world. The woman asks if he means something like the Blue Cloud Spirit Field, and he confirms. The man replies that they exist but only in the archives, and he cannot provide the coordinates. The young man says the information is vital to him, and that he will continue refining the pills diligently. He thinks there must be more cultivation instances with opportunities like Qingyunzi's legacy. 3 days pass and a pile of documents is delivered to the protagonist at his office. The woman says her goodbyes heading to the Tarot Club, and the young man thanks her for her help. With the documents in hand, he spends 100,000 energy points for 1 hour of immersive simulation. The system confirms the purchase, advising him he still has 407,000 energy points left. Inside the simulation, he feels the experience is like transmigrating, and the points were well worth it. He wonders what a confidential file is and sees a folder with a red secret stamp. Upon opening the folder, our hero is surprised by the information he finds inside. The screen indicates that the Blood Demon Grotto is dangerous and not recommended for Grandmasters. To make matters worse, the dungeon requires a martial emperor as a leader for completion. The young man discovers many experts perished there and calls the place a meat grinder. Now he understands why immortal cultivation dungeons aren't open to the general public. The document warns that upon entry, one must flee north to avoid the demon sect's lair. The sect's disciples are bloodthirsty, indiscriminately hunting anyone who enters the dungeon. Additionally, they possess special magical treasures capable of tracking their target's locations. The young man wonders if this means anyone who enters the dungeon is doomed to perish. But he realizes that if information got out, someone must have survived that terrible place. With a determined look, the protagonist decides to search for more clues in the document. He discovers the information was provided by a man named Shang Shu in 1978. The young man believes the man must be alive and that he needs to find it to ask for his method. However, he recalls he is just a novice cultivator and cannot face such a challenge. So he begins searching for a dungeon more suited to his current power level. The young man finds the Lotion Convention with a 2-star difficulty and minimal rewards. This dungeon is a time loop type where each entry repeats the same day for the player. The day in question is January 1st, 7266, the day of the Luotian Convention. Upon entering, the player transmigrates in the body of a cultivator named Lu Xiachuan, reliving his day. Our hero then discovers that besides memories, he cannot take anything else from that dungeon. Even so, he thinks it's worthwhile as the memories of an immortal cultivator are a treasure. With that in mind, he sets the document aside and prepares to view the next on the list. The young man finds a dungeon with 1-star difficulty, even lower than the previous one. This dungeon is set in an era where spiritual energy has been depleted, something he can relate to. The location has 3 main sects that still preserve some ancient and rare immortal techniques. With a smile, he gets excited, as the cultivation techniques are perfect for him to explore and learn. At that, he wonders if the Changchen sect's art is the same as the Advent faction he knows. Suddenly, the system warns him only 10 minutes remain, and he is shocked by how fast time flew. Wasting no time, the protagonist grabs his phone to make a very important call. On the phone, he asks Chief Lu for the coordinates of the 2 dungeons he just researched. The man says he can provide the coordinates for one, but the other closed 3 years ago and is useless. Nevertheless, the young man insists and gets both coordinates for his plan to succeed. He celebrates as the 100,000 points were worth it, and the coordinates don't take up a slot. With 10 seconds remaining, the system asks if he wishes to exit, and the young man confirms. Back in reality, he stretches in his bed, celebrating his safe return. With his phone in hand, he hurries to mark the coordinates while his memory is fresh. He thinks that even with low difficulty, the dungeons have ancient cultivators, so it's better to wait. He then continues the simulation and, after getting the coordinates, dedicates himself to refining pills. With rice and eggs, his body refinement reached great perfection, but his chew refinement didn't advance. He wonders if there's a flaw in his method and decides to review the technique Qingyunzi left him. Suddenly, the protagonist realizes something important about his cultivation he hadn't noticed before. To reach the gold level, he needs immense energy, but his mystical realm doesn't have enough. The young man remembers the Yuan nourishing pill and that its main ingredient is the grass of the same name. After searching through his things, he finally finds the plant he so badly needed for the pill. With this, his indomitable talent activates to help him through the difficult pill refining process. Years pass, and after countless failures, he finally refines 5 batches of low-grade pills. He notes that the organ refining pill is violent and could be fatal for those with a weak constitution. The Yuan pill, however, is gentler and can be safely consumed even by a Q refiner. Upon taking the pill, he feels infinite spiritual energy, its quality higher than before. Even though his cultivation remains at the same level, his strength has multiplied several times with the pill. At this rate, when he reaches the gold level, his strength will equal that of a master-level practitioner. With his new strength, he can finally enter the dungeon of the Dharma Ending Age to investigate. In the 12th year, his cultivation base stabilizes, and he feels a breakthrough to the gold level approaching. He spends 3 months refining over 100 pills to prepare for the major level breakthrough. The energy gathers like a mighty river, filling what was once a dry stream in his body. A mystical force emerges, rushing to his spiritual platform, and he shouts that it's happening. With an explosion of golden energy, his entire body is filled with a new power. With that, he finally breaks through, successfully becoming a gold-level cultivator. Laughing, he declares his destiny as his own now, and with enough resources, he will reach the gold level.